here for hours. You kept on going.
Okay.
So, record. Would you mind if I record when you speak?
Nope. Nope.
It's on.
It's on video?
It's already on.
Oh, you're going to do that recording? I thought you meant just voice.
Well, what's the difference? You look pretty.
Well, the difference is.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you mind? I want to take a picture of what you're talking about.
Okay, the thing is, like, how do we start? Okay.
Please.
All right. This is a group effort right here. You're looking at 171 dives that I made. Okay, the two items on the lower right are Steve Gatto's. Those two there. Everything else is mine. And this is part of team effort. I started diving the Angel Dory in 1985 with Steve Gatto. I was his dive partner.
Yes.
That was in July of '85. Steve took me in and showed me and told me exactly what I would see where I go. And then the first dive in Gimbal's Hole, you go in, you look, when you turn around at the staircase and you come out, you then pick up what you looked at. You don't pick up on the way in because you sealed it out. So when we turned around, what I picked up on the way out was this side dish here.
Beautiful.
Okay, and this crystal, and the magazine rack.
Wow.
And that was my first dive on the
This
Doria.
picture, the picture of the Doria?
This is the Doria.
Where would this Gimbal's Hole be, approximately?
Gimbal's Hole is kind of like in the area, in this area here. Okay, and it's called Gimbal's Hole because when Peter Gimbal went out there to get inside, to get to the safe, they blew open, they cut open the doors that were there.
Yes.
These little doors, well, they're down there now, the doors.
Yes.
And then they would go, and that became known as Gimbal's Hole.
Gotcha.
You go in Gimbal's Hole at 180, you drop down to 190, and then you would go aft towards the staircase, which was in, and then that was where, you know, the stuff was. The staircase was the key thing. You go to the staircase, turn around, come back.
Yes.
And by mistake, on one of my dives, I went past Gimbal's Hole and ended up in the chapel area, which I was not familiar with. Back in '85 to '91, I was diving air. '92 on, I was diving Trimax.
Yes.
So that was the diving back then. For me, was on air.
So the dish we said was 89. So you did that on air?
That was on air.
Oh, really?
This was 89, and that dish was back in the tourist class or third class area, which was back where that little cut is, where the white is.
Yes.
That little cut, you would go in there and then go forward a little bit, and then the guys on the Seeker back in '88 had cut a hole to get into the tourist class area. And then that started a controversy because a grid was put up to keep the other dive boats out.
Right. I read that.
That started controversy. But
Yes.
what it was you had divers paying back then around $450 each to go out and open up a hole.
Yes.
Now you have people coming the next trip that could reap the benefits. So that's why that was put there.
Right.
To keep the divers out that weren't on the trip that.
And I read about that in Gentile's book.
In Gentile's book, right?
Yes.
So then it was eventually removed because of the controversy between the dive boat Seeker and the Wahoo.
Yes.
And then worked that area for quite a few years, and I would do anywhere from 1 to 5 trips a year, and I would mate for the Seeker. I brought the Seeker up from South Carolina and stayed with Bill until he died. So that's why I was able to dive it so much.
Were you the guy that, did you take over and captain that ship for him?
I'm not a captain.
I see.
I'm strictly a mate.
I see.
Everybody that was now, all the guys down that were here today, all 4,
Yes.
they're all captain's licensed.
Yes.
6-pack or 100-mile captain's license.
Right.
I'm not. I'm a mate.
I see.
I mate for the captains.
Gotcha.
Okay. But that's why I was able to do so many dives, because I went as a mate.
Yes.
And I was back in those years between 85 and let's say 90. 95, I guess it was, I would be what was considered a water mate. I would go when I would tie in, or I would go with somebody, we would tie in.
I note on the record for the dish you showed me, it said pull the hook. So you were like the last guy out and you pulled the anchor?
I was the last guy on that trip. I was a water mate.
Right.
And usually, since there was nothing for the first dive saying set the hook,
right,
that meant that there was 2 other guys that set the hook. Now, since that was trip number 2, that meant that trip number 1, the mooring was set and left.
Right.
So when I come along, we're hoping that the mooring is still there. And if it is, then you just go in and you check the mooring to make sure it didn't fray. And then if it frayed or whatever, then you come up and the second team will then take a line down and secure it. But when it comes to pulling, it usually means that we're going down and we're unshackling a temporary that was our down line, but we're leaving our float there for trip 3, 4, or 5, whatever it may be.
Yes.
You know, but weather is what's going to determine.
Yes.
So back then, like I said, now I don't set anymore, and I may pull on even the dives I do now. I tell the guys I won't set the.
Would you go to Doria again, or do you have any plans to go to Doria again?
I was on the Doria last year.
Yes.
As a mate.
Is there stuff left to see, or get, or collect?
There's stuff to get. Now, the thing with the Doria, when I dove it up to, like I said, I did 15 continuous snares from 85 to 99. I dove it. 2000, I dove the Republic. And then 2001 and 2 and 2005, I dove the Doria. That was the last I've been on it 5 years ago. When I was on it last year as a mate, we were up in the bow area here. And if you saw the pictures running through continuously where there was Tom Packer with the light, and then there was like a light side by side, they were up in the bow area where they guys were. When I went back with them in August of 2009, we went back there, but it was Hurricane Bill, so there was no viz. But that's where they were working 2009. All the decks are down. Now, what I didn't like about diving is when you come down and you dove the hull, I had to go off the hull into the promenade, which was somewhat secure. But as you're swimming in there, you're dealing with the current, you're dealing with whatever had collapsed over the winter season. Well, now the decks are gone. So, what's nice about it for me now is, and I had suggested to the guys August of last year, 2009, why don't we just anchor in the debris field? That way we don't have to go down, leave the wreck and swim over the decks and over the hull. We can come straight down to the bottom. There's a debris field there now because all the decks have fallen down.
Right.
That's where the bell was found back this past June 26th. It was in the debris field because there is no decks to go and penetrate.
Right.
So, for me, I could come down. If I don't feel comfortable, I go back up. Where here, if you come down and you leave the hull, you had to deal with the current, either blowing you down, blowing you left or right, blowing you up, and that was the problem that I had when I was in better shape, was dealing with the current. So that's kind of like now. So the boat that I was going to go on this year, the guy didn't get himself ready. And the Wahoo went out, and you know, the best deal I could get from him was $2,000. And you know, when he says it's a 4-day trip, it's not. His actual time on the wreck would be 28 hours. His other time is traveling.
Yes.
So now in 28 hours, how many dives can you get in? You can only get 2, maybe 3, but you're really pushing it.
Yes.
Okay. 88 or 89, I don't know what year it was. I did 8 dives in one trip, 7 dives, 6 dives. Steve Gatto and I did 15, 20, 21 dives in 3 trips. Usually you only get 3 to 5 dives a trip. We got 8, 7, and 6. The weather was just ideal. Flat seas, no current, everything was in our favor, and we took advantage of it.
Yes.
And again, back then I was on air, and the work area was between 180 and 200. So you could go down, grab something, come back up. You didn't have to deal with the long decompression. Like now, you're talking 220 to 260. That's the wreck now. It's no longer 180 to 200 work area. The work area is deeper because it's collapsed.
I see.
See, so.
And how long is that decompression after you come up to what is the depth of that long decompression you do?
When I was doing air at 180 to 200, back then on air was 717.25 at 30, 20, 10. Fortunately, we survived, because now if you look at the tables, we were just constantly
off the charts,
constantly pushing the tables.
Right.
See, and we didn't do O2 diving until around 88, 89, and that was like, oh my God, you know, O2. You know, we stayed away from it because we didn't understand it. See,
right.
So
partial pressure.
Yeah, that too.
Right. Sure.
You know, we just kind of stayed. We didn't understand it.
Yes.
So that's what all the diving was.
And you said a lot of times it was strenuous in terms of the current down there and stuff. It would really make you breathe hard.
There was times where you would go in, and that was the other thing about it. Like the Seeker back then, when you would anchor up, even the boats back then, meaning 85 to 2005, we'll say, you grappled the wreck. You jumped in and you swam to the bow to go down. I don't do that anymore. The boats that I'm with now, we don't do that anymore. Now you're grappled in. Now you run, you drop, depending on what boat it is, you drop a bar over that's 40 feet deep. That's your O2.
We hung on the bar many times, yes.
Station. You go down that, and then from there's another transfer line that goes from 40 feet down to 70 to 100 feet, depending on the length of it. So when you go over, you're in the water. You don't have to swim across the surface against the current.
Right.
So we've improved that over the years, the system. Some of the other boats, you go off the stern and you drop down and swim. It's there, but I don't like the stern entry, especially if you have current.
Gotcha. Interesting.
You have to really be up on it.
And you said your total of dives, 171 total dives? Have you done more?
I have 171 dives on the Dorian.
Excellent. Excellent. Unbelievable.
And
2,400 total dives or something?
August 3rd, I just completed my 2400th logged dive.
Nice.
Because I'm one of the few people that still keep a log.
I know what you mean.
Okay. I still have the log.
Sure.
And that's why I can prove my dive.
Of course.
I have the logs. And it helps when you're Alzheimer's. Or I used to have notes also on the wrecks. But when I did the Monitor in 1990, my bag was thrown away by mistake because I had my dive gear in a trash can, which was easier to just pull along and wash. Well, somebody took the trash can out to the curb. In that was my dive bag and my logs and my notes.
Oh, goodness.
And which was good. Like I go on a wreck, I can check my notes and see, you know, if I'm in a certain area. So it's good to keep a log.
I keep my log.
Not too much is the temperature, you know, but what you saw, you know, and
great.
And I try to get some of the dive boats to keep a log on when you go to a wreck. Just, you know, you were there. Great boat, the Seeker.
So today, September the 11th, at the Maritime Museum in New Jersey, and I really appreciate you giving us that type of a review. Right. And the treasure will be very well taken care of and appreciated. I really thank you so much. Artifact.
That was great.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I really appreciate it,
Thank
Bart. All right. Thanks. We just like take a picture of us.
Sure. Wait a minute.
Just get us on the